The state has been imbalanced for the better part of the last generation, last 30 years, last 40 years. And when you see things like adding sort of fuel to the fire by giving incentives to General Electric to go to the seaport, while we could have been using those scarce resources to support economic growth and development in gateway cities outside of the greater Boston area, I think folks sort of scratch their head and say, why haven't we learned this lesson? We've put too much pressure on greater Boston to drive the regional economy, and that's overheated the housing market. That's put added stress on our transportation infrastructure, adding to the fact that we haven't invested in it in decades. And it's left us unable to take advantage of the opportunities in Pittsfield and New Bedford, Fall River, North Attleboro, right? Lowell, Lawrence. All of those communities have potential if we just turn them into the regional economic drivers that they were before the last 40 years.
I took a shortcut to Stop and Shop in Attleboro over the weekend, and I drove by what was Texas Instruments in Attleboro. Part of the TI campus is now used, very small portion of it is used by Bristol Community College and also Bridgewater State University. And you mentioned GE, when you grow up, they shut down. How, as governor, can you bring those jobs back? I mean, Donald Trump got elected on saying, we're going to bring jobs back. I'm not sure all the communities that he said that to got those jobs back, Carrier being one of them. But how, as a governor, can you do that?
Yeah, so first I think it's being honest and saying we're not going to bring those exact jobs back, but we're going to grow off of points of strength that Massachusetts has. Here I get to brag about my wife for a moment. Michaela ran a program at a clean tech incubator called Greentown Labs. Greentown Labs has 5 or 6 dozen clean energy startup companies based there on the Cambridge-Somerville line. Her job was to run a manufacturing program there and to make sure that after those companies did their first prototype at Greentown, that they didn't think, all right, now I've got to go to North Carolina, I got to go to Alabama, or I have to go to Asia to do my first run of my product. So she had a full roster of potential contract manufacturers across Massachusetts, generally small firms that grew up around those larger firms and had managed to survive through the better part of the last 30 years, the last 40 years, who had the equipment to do a first run. Many of those same contract manufacturers would look at startups and say, I don't know if we know how to work with these smaller companies. We're used to dealing with much more established companies. But the work that Michaela did at Greentown bridged that gap, effectively served as a translator, and made sure that when that company was a 2-person company, as they grew to a 4-person and an 8-person company, they were staying here in Massachusetts and supporting local manufacturers as well. So we need to be more intentional about the work. We can't just put big incentives on a hook, cast it out into the ocean, and hope we're going to get something better. That doesn't work, and that just leaves every community competing with one another. We need to look at the strengths of local communities, partner with those local communities, and make sure their needs are met. And again, we can't be wasting dollars trying to add another tech company into the seaport. We need to be using those dollars to support outerlying economies outside of Greater Boston.